don't think I could talk my wife into that. I think that because she's somebody who's very sensitive to. Yes, y'all! It is DCTF Live, an internet show. My name is Greg Tepper. I'm the managing editor of Dave Campbell's Texas Football and TexasFootball.com. It's this magazine, which I've been pouring through because we're actually starting the process of putting together the 2016 summer edition. We will have so much more on that in the coming weeks. So I'm the managing editor of that magazine and the website, TexasFootball.com. I'm sitting at this desk. There's one other desk in the room. That desk belongs to the person sitting behind that desk, and the person that is sitting behind that desk has a name, and that name is Max Thompson. Hi, Max.
What's going on?
Is that as convoluted a way as I could say?
That was far more complicated than it needed to be, but hey, it's a dreary day. You got to just power through.
We'll get into that in a moment. Today is March 8th, 2016, episode number 89, the number of strikeouts for Charlie Leibrandt in his 1 year as a Texas
Obviously.
Ranger.
Everyone knows that.
A little bit later, 12:15, we will be joined on the phone lines by... Actually, phone line, it only takes one. And are there really even lines anymore? I think cell phone to cell phone.
Sure.
James Lott, the official recruiting analyst of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, going to break down some of the best 2017 linebackers across the state. Some of them you may have heard of, some of them you may not have, so we're going to go through those. Interested talking to James Lott, who knows a little something about recruiting. That coming up in just a little bit. And in a moment, is Houston a national title contender? We'll get into that in a moment. There was big weather in the DFW Metroplex. I was waking up at my normal time, about 9:30 in the morning, and that's not true. But I was
man.
There was big time weather, and I've gone on record as being pro big weather.
Yeah,
I like it. But we were also talking before the show about. I said, man, I love when it's overcast like this. Like it's like I think because we don't get it very often.
Yes,
it'll only be like this in Texas. What? 30 days a year?
Yeah, it's sunny a lot here.
It's sunny a lot, which is something we shouldn't take for granted. And even if it's not sunny. It's cloudy, but the sun can poke through. Like right now, it's dark.
It's dark.
It's dark outside
at noon.
But I brought up the point, and I said, yeah, I really like when it's overcast. And you said, well, then you can move to Seattle whenever you want. Seattle is a fabulous city.
It's a great city.
It's a great city, and I think there's a lot of things about that city that really appeal to me. I don't know if I've ever eaten better than our trip to Seattle.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
The Pacific Northwest in general.
My
good
goodness.
Food.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, they got the mountains. They got the ocean. Yeah. They got, a great ballpark in Seattle.
Sure.
You know how important that is to me.
Yes. Some of the best eating I've ever done in my life. Portland, Seattle, and Victoria, British Columbia.
Yeah, up there in the Pacific Northwest. It's beautiful. But the problem is that it's just overcast and horrifying for 200 days out of the year.
Yeah.
And that I don't think we could do. I think we shouldn't take for granted the fact that It is, even when it's like rainy right now, it's
Right.
what? It's 65 outside?
Wonderful.
Pretty nice. Like
I
overall,
love Texas.
overall, if you need to be outside,
Yeah.
if you could be under something so you don't get rained on,
Yeah.
it's actually pretty nice outside.
For sure.
And I was reminded of this whenever we went on vacation to Mexico because we were surrounded by Northerners, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's like 5 degrees at home right now." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually a lot like it is here at home right
Right.
now. It's nice and warm." And when we were in last summer, when my wife and I went to Europe, we stayed with a couple in Copenhagen in Denmark, and we kind of went and we were talking with these folks, and it was an Airbnb type thing, so we'd never met them. And I asked him, saying, "Oh man, like it looks like it's going to be really beautiful. It looks going to be about 70 tomorrow." He's like, "Oh yeah, tomorrow's going to be like the nicest day of the year. You guys came on like the best day of the year." I'm like, "Really? This only happens like once?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it's like snowing for 300 days a year."
Yeah.
He's like, "It was snowing 2 days ago."
Yeah.
And so it's when you weigh places to live,
Yeah.
I think that doesn't get taken into consideration enough, because I don't want to be miserable in the weather.
No.
I think that's something that we I don't know. We shouldn't take for granted here that even when it's
I'm telling you.
150,000 degrees outside.
I don't.
Which, by the way, when I told him that, when I said, "Oh yeah, it'll get up to, it'll be pretty consistently," and I tried to convert it into Celsius or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
It'll be pretty consistently about 100 during the summers and stuff. He looked at me. His name was Jens, and he looked at me as if I was actually from a different planet.
Yeah.
It just didn't compute for him. But at the same time, I imagine if I were to tell him, "Yeah, I don't really like it when it's about 40 degrees,"
Yeah.
I think he'd be like,
What's wrong with that?
that seems
just
pretty
normal.
great.
It's a
That seems
great
in
day.
fact I would love for it to be 40 degrees."
Yeah. As the person here who's spent, I don't know, like 25 years of my life in places other than Texas that were all a lot colder, I love Texas. Give me the sun. Give me 100. I don't care. I'll take it all.
And I think that's what makes. I think that's a big reason why I'm a baseball fan. To bring
Sure.
it back to that is that for me, going to a baseball game is being out in beautiful weather, being out in the sun. And yes, it may be 100 degrees outside, but they serve beverages there.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
We are DCTF Live. We're here every weekday at noon on TexasFootball.com. Subscribe to the podcast. On iTunes, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on all that fun stuff. Oh, by the way, I want to throw this out there. iTunes is the major podcast source for most of the world, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you use another podcast application, format, and that's the reason that you're not listening to the podcast, let me know, and I'll try to get it on there. But for now, I'd like Stitcher or whatever.
Right.
I don't know if it's worth the effort to go and
I
send
really
it.
think the second most predominant one is probably SoundCloud.
SoundCloud,
right?
yeah. If you're just a big SoundCloud P1 and you really want
No one is.
that, let me know, and I'd be happy to work on that. But for now, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. I was thinking about that the other day. So, Max, there was an article on a little website, ESPN.
I believe it's pronounced Espen.
Espen.go.com.
Yeah.
And it's written by Casey Joyner. I have to admit, I'm not familiar with Casey Joyner. I enjoyed this particular piece, but this is the first time coming across his work. And the headline is, "Believe it, Houston can win the college football playoff title in 2016.
Interesting.
And he lays out kind of in great detail why this is, despite the fact that they are tied for next to last in that conference, the American Athletic Conference, in returning starters. They have a very difficult non-conference schedule, especially with Oklahoma in the opener. But he goes on to say, listen, first of all, you doubt Tom Herman at your own peril.
Absolutely true.
And Tom Herman is bringing back his quarterback. He's bringing back Greg Ward Jr.
Sure.
And beyond that, they also bring back, and I think this is something that's gone a little bit underreported, they bring back 4 of their 5 offensive linemen. They're losing Carter Wall.
Big deal.
But they bring back 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. Is that a home run?
That's Brock Holt home run.
It's Brock Holt.
Go Sox.
Brock Holt. So he mentions that yes, they're losing DeMarcus Ayers, but they've got a lot of different weapons coming back. They're bringing back 3 of their 4 or 3 of the 5 offensive linemen.
Right.
They're losing Carter. They're losing their tackles, Carter Wall and Alex Cooper. So he seems to indicate, yes, that is a big reason why Houston can win the college football playoff title in 2016. Right. Now, let me crap all over that.
Oh, we're just going to go straight into crapping on it?
Listen, my feelings on Houston are well documented.
Okay.
I think the arrow is pointing up. I think that last year's 13-1 season is not a fluke. I think that it is the product of an outstanding head coach and a group of guys who bought in, and I think that's they're only going to become more and more of a power in the American Athletic Conference. That said, I think to say that they can't, okay, of course they can. Every team can. But to put them on the short list of teams that can win the college football playoff national title next year, I think is a little bit foolhardy. And I'll tell you why.
You better.
First of all, you're losing. You're bringing back 3 of your 5 offensive linemen, but you're losing arguably the 2 most important guys.
Sure.
You're losing your tackles. You're losing Alex Cooper at the left tackle and Carter Wall at the right tackle. And when you're talking about an offense like Houston, where they like to roll their quarterback out and they like to have a mobile quarterback, tackle play is so very, very important. Now, they're going to have some guys who can come in and step in. I don't know exactly how that offensive line is going to shake out. We'll find out in the spring. But I think that is a huge, huge deal. Secondly, they're losing by far, their number 1 option receiving-wise in DeMarcus Ayers. They've got some guys who can maybe step up. Maybe this is the year that Stephen Dunbar makes a really big leap to become the number 1 guy. But I have questions about this offense. Yes, you bring back Greg Ward Jr., and he's fantastic. Yes, you bring back some outstanding running backs, Shaven Webb, Brandon Wilson. You're going to have some guys to do that. I'm not so much worried about the offense. I think there are concerns on the offense, but I'm not so much worried about it. To me, the reason that I am a little bit skeptical of Houston as a national title contender is because they are losing almost wholesale the strength of their team last year. Okay? The reason that they went 13-1 last year, the reason that they were so good, I hate to say it was all one unit, but it was mostly one unit, and that was their secondary. Their secondary, with Adrian McDonald, with Trevon Stewart, with William Jackson III, was lights out. If you are into the advanced analytics type stuff, which you know I am, Houston, this is going off of S&P Plus, which is the Football Outsiders metric as far as measuring efficiency and measuring explosiveness. You can find it on footballoutsiders.com. So if you are into that kind of thing, you would say, oh, well, Houston's defense, they were really good last year, right? 58th. Fine. And really, across the board, they were pretty average, pretty middle of the road. Where they were really good were in 2 things, or rather in one particular area. And it's something that they call havoc, which I love. I love the idea of creating havoc. It's basically how much chaos you cause the other team, how much you cause the other team, a measure of getting the other team off balance. And their front 7 havoc was not all that great. Their front 7 havoc only ranked 61st in the nation. Their defensive back havoc, 7th in the nation, just behind TCU, and we were all pretty impressed with TCU's defense there towards the end. Okay? I think that when you look at this defense and what they are losing, whether they are losing Adrian McDonald, where they are losing Trevon Stewart, where they are losing William Jackson III. Yes, they bring back guys like Jeremy Winchester. Yes, Lee Hightower, he's gone as well. But they're going to bring back some guys, Khalil Williams. But they are losing, I believe, 6 of their 8 in the secondary 2 deep. And when that is the strength of your team, I have questions about how they're going to fill those. Now, that's not to say that they are doomed. And I think that right now, if I were to pick a record, I would say that they're still going to be pretty good. I think they got a good chance at winning 10 games. But if you look at the schedule, first of all, I don't think the American Athletics is going to be a world beater next year. I think Memphis is going to take a step back. I think that Navy is going to take a step back. You're going to have some of these guys, some of these teams that were the top tier of the American Athletic taking a step back. So I don't think it's a world beater. But you're asking them basically to run the table after What we have to right now say is probably a loss to Oklahoma. I don't think that's going out on a limb to say that Oklahoma is going to beat Houston. Do you think that's going out on a limb?
No, it's not going out on a limb.
I think that then you're saying if an American athletic team is going to win the conference, or an American athletic team is going to make the college football playoff, you would then have to run the table out there. I think you can get in with a loss to Oklahoma, but then you'd need to run the table. There's not a two-loss American athletic team is not getting into the college football playoff. So I think that the pieces are in place offensively. They need a couple of guys to step up, especially on the tackle spots and at the number one receiver. My big concern is replacing that key part of the secondary or finding another place where that defense can be dominant. I don't think you have to be Alabama, where you have to have this just crushing defense from every level, from the linebackers to the defensive line to the secondary. I think in today's game, you need to have one unit on your defense that can really dominate. And last year, Houston had that. They had that secondary. Where's it going to come from this year? That's my big question with regards to whether or not Houston can be an actual national title contender. For now, I think I'm selling them as a national title contender. I'd love to be wrong, and you doubt Tom Herman at your own peril. But for me, that's where I sit. What am I wrong about, Max? You're looking at me like I'm wrong.
2 counterpoints.
Go ahead.
Number one, at Ohio State's peak with Tom Herman, who is their best wide receiver?
Good point.
2, you're returning the interior of the line. So really what we're hoping for is the emergence of one of the running backs. Now, that's not as easy with Farrow gone. But if one of those running backs can emerge, I think they're okay there on offense. 2, I think their defensive line is going to be the best unit in the league. I think that's your trade for losing the defensive backs.
Maybe, yeah. So you're saying that the guys that they bring back, they lose Tommy Mark, but they bring back B.J. Singleton, Cameron Malvo, Tyus Bowser, all guys who I like.
Yes.
And they're adding in, of course, Ed Oliver. Which, everybody's very high on. I like Ed Oliver a lot.
Yeah.
But if you are casting your lot and saying, I'm counting on a true freshman to come in and be the dominant force on our defense, I just don't think that's something I can count on right now. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying it's not something that I can count on right now.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
But I think they're going to win the conference, and if they can just find a way to beat Oklahoma, I think they'll be there the whole way.
We are DCTF Live. We're here every weekday at noon on TexasFootball.com. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We are on TexasFootball.com. I want to let you know, TexasFootball.com, you can go on. We have all the information about our South by Southwest show on Sunday, March 13th, 6:30 p.m. at the Ginger Man in Austin on Lavaca Street. Come and see us. We're going to be doing a live show of DCTF Live. You can come and meet us. There's going to be a lot of big-name guests, too big to name right now, big-name guests that are going to be joining us at South by Southwest. We're teaming up with Blogs with Balls, Transition Sports Entertainment, and Fansided to bring you this at the Ginger Man. It's called Sunday Night Lights. All the information is on TexasFootball.com. This Sunday, 6:30 p.m. at the Ginger Man on Lavaca Street in Austin. Come and see us. One guy who spent a little bit of time in Austin himself is the official recruiting analyst of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. We are so glad to be joined for our weekly visit with James Lott. How are you this week, James?
Greg, what's going on, my man? You guys doing okay?
Yeah, we're doing okay. We're trying to survive this weather. It's I think God got upset about something we said on the show at some point.
Yeah, especially on my kids' spring break. So
no.
I still wish it was sunny so I can get them out of the house.
So we've got we've talked a bit about the quarterbacks and we've talked a bit about the defensive backs. Today we're going to be spotlighting some of the best linebackers in the state. This seems like a really top-heavy group. Seems like there's a couple of guys at the very top who could be considered among the best prospects in the state.
Exactly. And one of those guys that everybody's talking about, and you kind of shined some light on him last week, is Anthony Hines from Plano East. Big old kid, 6'3", 230 pounds, 4'5" kid that can run. Interesting thing, and you said this last week, is the kid has over 79 offers, if you can believe that. 79 offers. Basically, every major in the country has offered this kid, mainly because he's big, he's rangy, he can cover some ground, explosive, sideline to sideline kid that can. He plays in the middle. Sometimes he plays outside, but when he's in as a middle linebacker, he can make plays from sideline to sideline. I watched a little film on him yesterday, and one of the things that just stood out is at times it seems he is the best player on the field. I mean, you look at him and then you look at the kids he's playing against, and it's a man amongst boys. So, very, very well-spoken kid, smart, has his head on right, very humble kid, and he's what I would call a hybrid kid. And when I say hybrid, backer is, I think when he gets to the next level, he's a kid that can play 3 downs, and you don't have to pull him out. You know how when passing downs, offenses, you just pull a guy out to put in a quicker guy that can cover. This kid can play every play, but because he's got that kind of speed, range, and coverage ability to be also efficient in pass coverage.
You mentioned the hybrid thing, and that's kind of a word we've used a lot in our conversations. You know, last week talking about the defensive backs, we talked about guys who can play both safety and corner. Is that the way it's going with the linebackers? You've got to be able, you know, are the days of the big plotting middle linebacker numbered?
You would think, especially in the Big 12, with as much as people are doing, spreading you out and throwing the football. But even when they run the ball, they got you in situations where you're going to be in a bunch of one-on-one situations. So the rangier athletic kid is gonna win those battles and be more efficient for you, because you've got a kid that can tackle in space, can run down plays from sideline to sideline, and then to tackle those little slot receivers on those screens and things like that. So that's kind of where it's shifting to.
Another guy that you spotlighted in our previous conversation, Baron Browning, the linebacker out of Kennedale. You know, Kennedale was known this year for their running back Q Wadley, who's off to UTEP. But I know that you've had your eye on Baron Browning for a little bit here. When you watch him play, when you watch him on film, what really jumps off the screen to you?
You know, I saw Baron Browning in 2013. I was out at Kennedale's, they had a camp during the summer, so I went out there to kind of watch them. And Coach Barrett, who's also a UT alum like me, kind of introduced the kid and said, "This is the kid you need to keep an eye on." And it was after Baron's freshman season. And what piqued my interest in our conversation was he tells me that the kid was on the track team and had just coming from the UIL state meet and was a gold medal winner as a member of the 4x2 100-meter relay. I said, "A linebacker?" He's like, "Yes. You need to put him in your database. He's going to be a big-time guy." So I remember from that point on, I started watching the kid, and immediately he jumped out on tape as a guy that I knew was going to be one of the top guys one day. 38-plus offers. And here's another interesting thing. Not only does he run track, he's also like a regional champion in powerlifting. He's actually qualified for state in powerlifting. So that combination of a football player that's that athletic, where he can be on your sprint relay on the track team, and also a powerlifter on your powerlifting team, and be one of the best in the state is unheard of. But it's, once again, I think that shift of going towards guys that are athletic, that can run, that can match up more with these spread offenses these days that have defenses spread out. And so you need guys out there that can run down plays and tackle in space.
We're talking. I didn't mean to interrupt you. We're talking with James Lott, the official recruiting analyst of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, here on DCTF Live. Get involved in the conversation at #DCTF Live. James, I wanted to ask you a little bit about statistics, because, you know, when we look at running backs and quarterbacks and receivers, it's easy to see numbers that jump off the page. You know, you can't fluke your way into a 3,000-yard passing season. You know, there are some numbers that speak for themselves. From a defensive perspective, how much attention do you pay, if at all, to maybe the statistics and the numbers that these kids are putting up?
Some, but not a lot. When you're looking at defensive guys, what I look at mainly is I cut on the film, and basically, if a kid, because a kid can be in a situation where he has 150 tackles, but you cut on the film and you're not blown away. So for me, as I evaluate, I'm looking for guys that I foresee as guys that would project out as guys that can play at the next level at a major institution, at Texas, or Baylor, or Arkansas, or Oklahoma. So I'm looking for guys that I think that have the ability to play for those guys on Saturday. So stats mean something on defense, but now sometimes when I look at safety, sometimes one thing I'll look at is their ability to intercept balls. So if you're a kid and you're rolling back there and you've got 9, 10 interceptions a year, then that would tell me immediately that you got excellent ball skills and you're pretty instinctive as a free safety or a cornerback, but not as much for me at linebacker and defensive line.
One other guy you spotlighted here this week is Levi Jones at Austin Westlake, of course, under noted defensive guru Todd Dodge. I want to know, when you look at Levi Jones, obviously helping to guide the Chaps to a state title game, what about him really impresses you?
Similar kid, 6'3", 215. I don't think one thing about Levi that's interesting too is you talking about genetics. His dad is actually a linebacker that played at Dallas Cowboys, won several Super Bowls, Robert Jones. He had a brother that played wide receiver that was originally at Texas and transferred to Arizona. And then he's got another brother that played wide receiver at East Carolina. So, you think about that, two boys already and a father that played in the league. This kid, you talking about destined. But another athletic kid that can run and make plays and has range. Very, very impressive to watch. And it's interesting to see with him, where he ends up. I would be totally surprised if he and the Longhorn, with Hudson did right there at Westlake. But another great prospect that's got all those tools to make it at the next level.
Whenever you see a kid who's got a dad who played in the league or a brother, is that something that kind of maybe a little extra asterisk next to his name that a kid worth paying attention to?
I think so. With me, I look at that, because first I look at genetics and that kid's ability and what's he playing with talent wise, but also I look at work ethic. If he's got a brother and a dad that's played in the league and has played college football, I would assume in most situations that kid's a kid that's kind of come up as a youngster under that structure. So he knows what it takes to play at the next level. He knows about the work ethic. He knows about the work he has to put in to play at that next level. So he's sort of been structured as he's coming up to be better suited, whereas sometimes a kid that isn't surrounded by that doesn't have quite that structure. So not saying that it has to be that way, but I think it's definitely an advantage.
He is James Lott. He's the official recruiting analyst of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Follow him on Twitter at JL Scouting. James, appreciate your time. Stay dry. Maybe try to get those kids out of the house on spring break. Even if you have to sit them out in the rain, it's good for them.
I wish. But I appreciate you having me, guys.
There he goes, James Lott, the official recruiting analyst of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, joins us every Tuesday here on DCTF Live. Anthony Hines and Baron Browning, two names. Hines was a guy that we started hearing about as a freshman. I mean, that was a kid that at Plano East started racking up offers, coming into his freshman year, like as an 8th grader. And I remember thinking, that's crazy. Why are we paying attention to this kid?
Right.
But, obviously he's matured very well, and Baron Browning the same way. And by the way, I'll just tell you, you go look at Cannondale's defense. Here were their top, and again, tackles aren't everything, but here were their top 10 or so tacklers: sophomore, junior, senior, junior, sophomore, junior, sophomore, junior, sophomore.
So do you think they'll be any good this year?
Well, I mean, again, the question is going to be how do they replace Q Wadley?
Right.
Now, we talked with Coach Richard Barrett. He thinks that he's got some guys in the mix, but they lost their running back in Q Wadley, and they lost their fullback in Dalen Wells.
Yeah.
Their next highest or their next best. I don't want to say next best, but their next most prolific running back was a sophomore, Jaden Knowles, but he only ran the ball 49 times.
Right.
So can he handle the workload that Q Wadley and Dalen Wells handled? We're going to see, but we know that the defense will be pretty sturdy there with Baron Browning. So that is going to do it for us. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with us, rather. And thanks to James Lott, the official recruiting analyst of DCTF, for joining us and talking some linebackers. Follow us on Twitter at DCTF. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Dave Campbells. Follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/Dave Campbells. And, of course, see us at texasfootball.com. Vince Young, please come get your Player of the Year trophy. And we will see you tomorrow on DCTF Live.